Good morning, friends from the media. Welcome to today's press briefing. The Chief Executive will first speak before answering questions. Chief Executive, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to the central government's office. I have a few things to say to you. I will be succinct. I have 4 points to make. First, the AntiChamber Exchange will be put in place tomorrow. For the first time, I will lead the 3 secretaries of department as well as the undersecretaries together with the CEO of the Chief Executive's office to attend this session. The actual details will be worked out by the LegCo. As I said in the question and answer session at LegCo, I said that I suggested the AntiChamber Exchange should become a regular exchange session, but in the end, I would leave it to the LegCo to make the final decision. As I understand, tomorrow at 9:15, the session will begin. We are aware that at 11 o'clock, the council meeting will start. So we will wrap up the exchange session at around 9:45. The AntiChamber Exchange session is only a starting point. I would like to make a start by putting in place a regular exchange session for everyone to exchange their views. There will be further interactions subsequent to the exchange session, and these will be followed up by relevant departments as well as bureaus. We have a regular exchange sessions in the form of a meeting between the chief secretary and the president on a weekly basis. This time round, the AntiChamber Exchange session will be expanded to include relevant parties within bureaus as well as secretaries of departments and their undersecretaries. This is only a start. As to how the AntiChamber Exchange sessions is going to develop, we will be pragmatic. We will continue to make improvements. I will set an example. For the first time in this session, I will show everyone that we will be working on this exchange session. The other thing I'd like to say is about the 4 working groups. On the 7th of July, when I mentioned this at LegCo, within 7 days, that means tomorrow, well, actually today, there will be the first meeting. That includes the underprivileged schools to overcome cross-generational working group, the district coordination working group, the public housing exchange working group, and the land supply exchange group. All 4 of them will convene their first meeting. I am very happy with how actively they've responded. And the third point is that after the EXCO session today, there will be a break. We will announce the date when the next meeting will resume. During the recess, there will be various internal topical groups carrying out discussions among themselves as well as with government departments. If need be, I would ask EXCO members to come in for a meeting. The fourth point is in relation to our anti-epidemic efforts. Our current objective is to adopt precision strategies to minimize the scope of restrictions. We aim to allow most people to get on with their lives with a minimum amount of restrictions. And for those restrictions are required, we would aim at point-to-point arrangements. The HHB is currently looking into the launching of the red and yellow codes. The scope will be restricted. We're only talking about giving a red code to those who have been infected, and as you know, that they should not be moving about, increasing the risk to others. For yellow code, we will apply it to those who are under hotel quarantine. We will work out the details of the actual quarantine period and the relevant arrangements. So these are the only two categories of people that the codes would apply. In the long run, what we need to look into is that we need to learn from the experience of the fifth wave. And in our weak links, where pressure was nearly unbearable, we would need to swiftly tackle these weak points. We're now working on possible strategies. At the same time, we would try to minimize inconvenience cost to the general public. We want to come up with a way of early identification so that we can swiftly identify those affected and at the same time affect the least amount of people. And we want to dovetail the new measures with the old ones. We will listen to different views. Once a decision is made, we will let you know. What I can tell you now is that in relation to the red and yellow code, they only apply to the two categories of people. That is, those who have been infected, they'll be given a red code. And those who are under hotel quarantine, they'll be given a yellow code. Other people are not affected. That's more or less it. Next question. The floor is open for question. Raise your hand if your name, identify your media outlet, and use the microphone we give you.
The lady in white in the last row. Good morning, I'm from Now. Now, the government is thinking of color codes. The purpose of the yellow code is to shorten the period of hotel quarantine. The rumors that hotel quarantine will be shortened to 5 days in hotel to 2 days at home. Now, if we have this color code, perhaps there is no need for hotel quarantine at all. Now, there is a suggestion that there should be real-time registration of the color code system. Now, there are people who are worried that it would become a political tool because in mainland, some of the movement of depositors in a bank have been restricted by means of the color code system. How can you ensure that the system will only be solely for control of the disease? Are you going to consult experts? Will you further appoint experts, or will it solely be the decision of the Secretary for Health? Now, for the color coded system, let me be clear. The yellow code will only apply to a special category of people to consider the actual length of hotel quarantine and how the duration of quarantine can tally with our data so that we can minimize the length of quarantine so the social and economic activities as well as our global competitiveness can be retained. As regards the actual number of days of quarantine, we rely on real data. The Health Bureau is very proactively analyzing the relevant data. I'm sure the new considerations will be made public very soon. Regardless of the way we tackle the epidemic, we will surely be acting in accordance with the law. Now, we are a law-abiding place. The government, of course, will abide by the law. Any measures or meant for tackling the epidemic will not be used for other purposes. It's not going to happen. If anyone wants to stir trouble with this, let me say here categorically that is not a fact. It's not true. Don't believe in such things. Now, we will not go against the law in applying any measure, and there are bound to be consequences. And I'm sure we will do a good job in explaining the policy. I've agreed with the Chief Secretary for Administration that in launching any new measure, we will clearly consider all the scopes involved, and then we will give a good account to the public so that you understand that we're only focusing on the epidemic and to minimize the impacts on people affected by the epidemic. For instance, there may be 5,000 being affected. Now we won't want to reduce the number to 1,000, and then we will ensure point-to-point or closed-loop arrangement. And for experts, we'll continue to appoint experts. Even when I was the CE-elect, I've had 2 meetings with the expert group. One on one occasion by myself only, and the second together with Dr. Low, the Secretary for Health now, because we had not assumed office back then. It was an informal meeting, and then we issued a press release afterwards. Now, views of experts, scientific data in particular, is very good for our reference, and we will announce the formation of such committee very soon. All right, each can only ask 2 questions in the interest of time.
Hong Kong Free Press. First, even with a shortened quarantine, do you think business people or tourists will visit, show vaccination proof, spend thousands on a hotel and undergo, a dozen rat tests or PCR tests to attend meetings or do business? Is it compatible with Xi Jinping's instruction to maintain Hong Kong status when, Singapore is already fully open? Also, you just warned against stirring trouble when it comes to the idea of the health code being used for political purposes. But of course, we've seen this in Hainan province, and the government has already, said a couple of years ago they would not enact a health code. So how can you reassure Hong Kongers and rebuild trust over enacting this policy?
Well, first of all, every government, of course, have to design their COVID control measures according to their own circumstances. We have our own circumstances because we have a high proportion of elderly people. Our living conditions are relatively very dense, which are all factors that point to the higher risk of spreading the COVID virus. That's the first thing. The second thing is, from our experience in the 5th wave of the COVID attack, we know that the safety margin that was set at that time probably would not be sufficient in view of the fast spreading rate of Omicron. So what we need to do now is to balance these 2 risks. We have to ensure that the life safety of people who are facing a high risk, such as the elderly, the very young, such as children, and also people who suffer from long-term diseases, in which case the resistance to disease attack is weakened, and also people who are exposed to high risk, such as people in the medical profession. So we have to balance the risk so that we do not have an escalating rate of infected persons that will, first of all, overwhelm our medical system, the hospital system, and secondly, the people who are facing high risk are sufficiently protected. So what we are trying to do is be scientific and precise in our actions so that on the one hand, we can protect people who face such high risks, and at the same time, allow people to come in and out of Hong Kong more easily and more conveniently. That is what we are doing. That is why we are trying to reduce the number of days that a person will have to be isolated in a hotel or quarantined in a hotel so that they can then go about their normal activities. It is a balancing act which is not easy, but has to be taken into consideration based on actual circumstances. That's the first thing. The second thing is the health code, which is being introduced, is only to target two types of people, and they are very specific and small number. First of all, the red code is intended to identify people who have been infected, and they should not be going around to spread the virus. And the second group is also very small and well-defined, which are the people who are now being kept in a quarantine hotel. We introduce this yellow code for them so that when we design measures to allow them to have some limited activities so that business can continue in a much normal way, and we need some identification method. That is the whole purpose of the red and yellow code. And in the long run, I think we have to be realistic of what kind of risks we may be facing. First of all, we can see the figure escalating. Already now it averages at about 3,000. And the figures and the trend indicate that the figures will go up very quickly as well. And the hospitalization rate has already gone up at least by double, from 300 something to 900 something within 1.5 months. So we have to face this reality. That is why we are thinking of designing methods that will be able to allow us to react more quickly, to respond more precisely, and at the same time, allow more people who don't have to be so restrictive in the activities so that normal business can go about and the economy can go about in a much relaxed way. That's the purpose of what we are doing. But of course, we will listen to views, and we will also try to reduce the inconvenience to people, and also we'll make sure that we'll well explain the scope and the method so that people understand why we do it, what benefits they gain, and what are the concerns that they do not have to really bother, because there may be some misinformation which we need to address very quickly so that everybody knows what we are doing.
Well, in the interest of time, we only allow one more question. The lady in the front row. Good morning. I'm from HK01. On the question of fighting the epidemic, now the expert groups set up by the last term of government, is it still in operation? Because the former chief executive said that she was willing to advise on such aspects. So I'd like to know whether you intend to have step up publicity that, and you share with us your daily lives. Do you believe this will help? You will do to boost the confidence of young people in this government?
As I said, that the expert panel will see a new round of appointment very soon. When I was chief executive elect, I met with the expert panel. One time by myself and the other time with Professor Low. We had a heart-to-heart exchange in terms of points of view and scientific data. We will listen to experts before making decisions relating to the epidemic. Well, anyone who is conversant with the operation of the government, say, for example, myself, my personality, what I think about the general public, if we improve understanding, it will be a good thing. Apart from communicating via social media, I've already said that I would reach out to different quarters of our society. One of the things global policy address is to listen to different. I myself, the chief secretary as well as the secretary of department, would listen to different views. So you could see what kind of exchange we have with what